was waiting for Aemond to claim Vhagar as his bonded partner before I start lore vomiting. And in that 7th episode, we got it. The largest, most powerful, and experienced dragon went to an ambitious 10-year-old during the funeral of Vhagar's last master, Laena Velaryon. There are some magical rules in this fantastical world when it comes to dragon binding, like having one and only one bond during a lifetime, and the dangers of attempting to go on the back of a dragon you're not magically connected to. But stealing a vacant dragon is something little Laena Targaryen made up in House of the Dragon. The Targaryen house treats the eggs like their property, but if a dragon is hatched, the ruling family members barely interfere with which child bonds with what beast. Aemond makes Vhagar's 4th bond with a human, tying Velaryon for the most known riders in her lifespan. But like Velaryon, around the time of King Viserys took that first flight, Vhagar's age is showing. Both Vhagar and Velaryon likely had some Targaryen riders before Aegon's conquest, but George R.R. Martin doesn't spend too much time detailing those past generations. Vhagar is one of the first hatched on Dragonstone, after the family migrated here to avoid the doom of Valyria. We don't know who named Vhagar, but she's named after an old Valyrian god or goddess. The dragon is mostly bronze in color, with some green-blue accents here and there, along with bright green eyes. By the time Aegon decided no other man would call themselves kings while his house is around, Visenya and Vhagar were a powerful killing machine duo. They were never tested before the conquest, but it was like they were born for the job. The tag team's first assignment was to bring the minor house Stockworth into the Seven Kingdoms, a nice little practice trial for Visenya before taking on the kings of greater houses. Seeing their buildings on fire led to a quick surrender for House Stockworth. Visenya and Vhagar's next challenge would be significantly more difficult, taking on a whole kingdom. After the Targaryens' fleet was defeated in the Vale, Visenya had Vhagar burn their fleet in return, but it wasn't enough to win the Vale. She would have to land in the Arryn's courtyard for this victory. Vhagar's presence was enough to bring the Vale into the Seven Kingdoms. Visenya atop Vhagar united with her siblings, Aegon and Rhaenys, during a battle called the Field of Fire. The entire ruling family of the Reach at the time, House Gardner, was burned to the point of extinction, and the Lannisters caught a little bit of the Dragonfire too and surrendered. The war kinda went downhill from there, after their little sister Rhaenys and her dragon got shot out of the sky and fell to their death in Dorne. The following 2 years would be remembered as the Dragon's Wrath. Aegon and Visenya on Dragonback consistently burned the entirety of Dorne, but still, they would not bend the knee, so they gave up and just settled with the rest of the realm. When the realms began to reject the Targaryens after Aegon's 37-year-long reign, Visenya returned to the battlefield as an old lady to bring the castles of 5 lesser-known houses in the Riverlands. It was actually Vhagar's Dragonfire to supernaturally cremate Aegon the Conqueror's corpse. Despite being in good shape to ride her dragon to battle the year before, Visenya's body was giving up on her at age 73. She lived a long life, but after well over 50 years bonded with Vhagar, the dragon was without a rider. It took 29 whole years after being vacant for Vhagar for another Targaryen to attempt to master this beast. The 16-year-old Prince Balon, newly a knight, wanted to become a dragon rider. He was following in his big brother's footsteps, who was first to do the enter a tourney, do well and get knighted, then claim a dragon routine. Prince Balon, who some of you might not recognize, is the father of our very own King Viserys and Prince Daemon from House of the Dragon. Balon had 2 big achievements on the back of Vhagar for the 28 years of their bond. First, they participated in the most dominating Targaryen victory, taking care of some Dornish invaders in the Stormlands. The Targaryens lost 0 men. A decade later, Balon fought atop of Vhagar to avenge his older brother after he was killed by some other invading pirates, once again in the Stormlands. He burned all their ships. The next few years were very calm in the Seven Kingdoms because of how well Balon's parents, the old king and good queen, handled things. But the parents witnessed a lot of their children go before them, including Balon. 28 years bonded with Vhagar. He died to what the books call a burst belly. That's why grandson Viserys succeeded the old king. We don't get an exact age of when Laena tames Vhagar. The books only mention it to happen before 105 AC, so it was only a few years between Balon and Laena. House the Dragon states she was 15, but it was for sure years before that in the books, because Laena was aged down for the show, which muddies the timeline for us. She was about the age of Aemond, I believe, when he does his thing in episode 7, a little over 10. We don't get to see her encounter Vhagar for the first time in the show, after King Viserys warns her about this dragon being too large for this world. After Balerion died of old age, Vhagar became the largest and oldest dragon in this world, and the most battle experienced, after all that time taking care of soldiers and ships. Dragons in the story are described as intelligent, like in a lot of fictional works, and you can really see Vhagar's personality shine in House of the Dragon. Laena's whole personality is being a flying, loving dragon rider. During her marriage with Prince Daemon, they would draw crowds every time they went flying together. Another small change from the books are details of Laena's death after her 15-year-plus leisurely bond with Vhagar. Vhagar's past two masters are known badasses in the lore. Visenya, who's like 40% responsible for the mostly successful conquest. Balon, known as the Brave, for how he conducted himself from a very young age, even slapping Velaryon on the snout as a toddler. Laena and Vhagar's big moment came during her dying moments. She was unable to deliver her and Daemon's third child, and while dying, she went out to Vhagar to go on one last flight with her partner. She didn't quite make it on Vhagar's back, and had to be carried off to her deathbed by Daemon, but still a crazy moment. No dragon fights or anything though, a nice break for Vhagar. On the night of Laena's funeral, little Aemond Targaryen worked up the courage to approach Vhagar, who remained by Laena's side on the Velaryon's island Driftmark. The family's pressure and his ambitious nature made him go for the largest dragon there is. He had to sneak out in the night because he knew everyone would prevent this dangerous attempt. Plus, it wasn't very appropriate timing. I was waiting for this moment to play out on screen before a Vhagar video was made, because of how the aftermath affects the whole story. And by the aftermath, I mean Aemond becoming known as One Eye. The show makes some changes here and there, adding in Daemon's daughters to the mix and taking out little baby Joffrey. Either way, in the end, it was his nephew, the young Lucerys Velaryon, to pull out a knife and slash at his face, blinding him in one of his eyes permanently. But Aemond got what he wanted moments earlier. During that difficult first flight with Vhagar, the dragon made him work for that Dragon Rider title, coming off the heels of Visenya, Balon, and Laena. But now Aemond is amongst that fierce rank. You could just tell Vhagar was testing his willpower, with first almost burning him, then intentionally taking him on a horror ride from hell, where Aemond barely kept on his saddle. I like how the show added all those nets, showing just how much of a trial it is just to go for a flight. Vhagar is that large. It was a nice touch, seeing all the ropes whipping around Laena on her joyride, because the House of Velaryon is mainly known for sailing, not flying. Vhagar's life of comfort is over, with crazy-eyed Aemond in control now, but at least she won't be lonely. See you guys for the next time skip this weekend.